are connecting. I'm so excited. Happy Monday, everyone. A great day for motivation and a great day to start if you haven't started keto yet. So we are just connecting. It shows we're connecting with Dr. Jeremy, and hopefully we can do this. He's never done live on Instagram before, so I'm hoping. Yay! How's our sound? Can you hear me?
I can. How are you?
Excellent. I'm amazing. How is your day, Dr. Jeremy?
It's going great. Thanks for having me.
Yes. So why don't we jump right in? Because I know you're on your lunch break and we don't want to keep you. Why don't you start with introduce yourself, Dr. Jeremy? Because some of my people might not know who you are yet.
Sure. My name's Dr. Jeremy Thornton. I'm an internist, a chiropractic physician, and a clinical nutritionist. My main focus in practice is chronic inflammatory conditions, autoimmune disease, and such. And so, as you know, the ketogenic lifestyle fits very well into this space. And it is one of my primary treatments for a lot of different health conditions.
Excellent. So today we are going to talk about sweeteners. Now, I have a million questions. I think most of us have a million questions. But let's start with the number one I get all the time. Sucralose, yay or nay, Dr. Jeremy?
Yeah, my general rule of thumb is to stay away from all artificial sweeteners.
Okay.
And stick with natural ones. No, I have had patients where sucralose actually did increase blood sugar and did spike insulin. Some people seem to get away with sucralose. Some people struggle with it. Some people don't realize they're struggling with it, but maybe they're struggling with plateaus or stalls with their ketogenic lifestyle, and it may be because they're over consuming certain sweeteners, and one of those could be sucralose.
Excellent. Now, when people ask me, I won't lie, Dr. Jeremy, I'm the food girl, not the science girl. So when people ask me about sweeteners, I tell them what I know. Everyone tastes different. Everyone has a different application. It will taste different to you than it does to me. Trial and error. But when we're talking the science side, what spikes blood sugars, what doesn't, what are our better choices on the glycemic index?
Sure. Well, of course, what I recommend is to stay away from the blue stuff, the pink stuff, and the yellow stuff, right? So stay away from those artificial sweeteners if at all possible. Studies have shown that utilizing these types of sweeteners can actually increase appetite, can increase weight gain, can cause various types of metabolic dysfunction, and actually increase inflammation. So these things are things that I notice in practice. So, my very favorite sweetener, or my go-to sweetener that doesn't affect blood sugar, is stevia. Stevia, of course, as you know, is a plant extract. It's not a carbohydrate, not a sugar, but it does taste sweet. And has a glycemic index of 0. So that's always a safe choice to go for. Now, one thing that you probably noticed when you hopped on my live before, I was quite surprised because I was at my coffee shop and I thought I was grabbing some stevia, and I was, but when I looked at the ingredients closely, and that's the answer, guys, is you've got to look at your ingredients. You can't assume based on what it is or what you think it is or what it's labeled that you know what's in the ingredients. And in the ingredients in this package of so-called stevia, the first ingredient is not stevia. The first ingredient is dextrose, okay?
Oh.
One thing. So what does dextrose sound like, right? It sounds like glucose.
Yes. And
that's because it is. It is a sugar. In fact, it has the same glycemic index of glucose and will spike blood sugar and trigger insulin response just the same. So it could be, especially if you're consuming very much of these hidden sugars, could sabotage your ketogenic lifestyle. And, one thing that I would also like to point out is dextrose is derived from genetically modified corn. Ooh. Another thing, too, that in my opinion, we should avoid it as much as possible.
Okay, so now here's my question, because they trick us, and I'm not even going to pretend like it's by accident. I see a lot of products that are reformulated because everybody knows stevia is great, and stevia is the new buzzword. Now, what I have found is that they can put stevia, blast it all over the front package and say healthy, made with stevia, 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 and it's got 4 different sweeteners before stevia. So they don't have to add very much to claim the health benefit of stevia. So what would you say are the worst that we should avoid? Now, I will say for myself, Miss Iron Gut Stomach, I can eat them all. Even the really bad ones don't seem to bother my stomach. But which ones should we at all costs avoid when we see them blended in with the healthy sweeteners?
Exactly. Well, I would look out for anything that ends in OSE, first of all,
okay,
which is likely a kind of sugar.
Okay.
Also, watch out for maltodextrin, which is a common filler, and actually has a higher glycemic index than glucose itself.
Okay.
Also is derived from starches like either potatoes or corn or rice or wheat itself. And that's a common filler. Maltodextrin, dextrose are common fillers and are sneaky. So you definitely have to read your ingredients. Don't go by just what the product's called. Another really sneaky one that is in an awful lot of so-called low-carb, sugar-free, keto-friendly snacks, bars, chocolates, is the sugar alcohol maltitol. Okay? So we always hear that sugar alcohols are good for us and are safe and healthy on a ketogenic lifestyle. But one thing we have to learn about sugar alcohols is they're not all the same. Okay?
Yes.
And for example, maltitol, depending on if you use the powdered form, has a glycemic index of 36. The syrup form has a glycemic index of 52. And table sugar only has a glycemic index of 60. So here we are consuming this keto-friendly bar or chocolate or what I mistakenly grabbed the wrong chocolate chips one time, which was sweetened with maltitol instead of stevia and erythritol, which I was used to. So we're doing these keto-friendly snacks, not knowing the sugar alcohol has nearly the same glycemic index as table sugar, and wondering why we're not making the progress and the health improvements that we're desiring.
Yes. Now, this kind of relates a little bit closer to what I do in making recipes. But a lot of times I honestly can't give macros because I don't know what kind of sweetener you're going to use. So let's talk a little bit about the carbs that are in sweeteners as well. Because I think that's one thing that we don't even calculate, the carbs in our sweetener. So if you're using the packet of stevia, it might be 1 or 2 carbs per packet. So how do we factor that in as well? And are there some that are lower in carbs than others for us?
Right. I think that anytime we're talking about things that are not fruits, not vegetables, not real food, that, a lot of people say, well, we can subtract that from our carbs or net carbs. I say be careful with that because we still need to count those. Now, I think that we can subtract, fiber from our vegetables, right? Or our nuts, for example. But just because it's called a sugar alcohol or whatever the label is, and it's so-called, we can, they're just free. There's no such thing as a free carb or a free calorie, right? So we still have to total those. We still have to keep that in consideration when we're making things, because especially, you with your expertise in cooking and baking and all of these things, these alternative flours and these artificial or even natural sweeteners, the carb count is still in there and something we have to be aware of and something we have to look at.
Yes. Now, something some people might not be aware of, you can also grow fresh stevia. I grow it fresh at home, and then I use the leaves either fresh or dry them. So that's a good option for me that takes out all of the chemical processing. It's just raw leaf sweetener that I grew at home. I know what goes into it. I know, and I don't have to worry. So whenever possible, I try to use my natural sweetener. So
that's a great way to do it. There's no dextrose in there.
Yes. And it's awesome that way. I mean, that does taste a little grassy. I won't lie, but it works.
Absolutely.
It does work.
Some of my other favorite go-tos are, sugar alcohols like erythritol.
Yes.
Is a good choice for most people. Sometimes people may be sensitive and have a little GI upset, but it's not very common. And generally, if used in small quantities, it will often resolve, even if you have a little bit of a sensitivity to it at first. Monk fruit is another fine choice, which has a glycemic index of 0. And some people like xylitol.
Yes.
I say be careful with xylitol, especially if you have fur babies at home.
Yes.
Very, very toxic for dogs. Has a glycemic index of 13, but some people enjoy xylitol as an alternative sweetener.
You hit all of my favorites. Like every single one of my favorites that I buy, you hit that. I live in Canada, and it's a little bit different here. We don't get a lot of brands of sweeteners, so I go to the bulk store and I buy a small amount of each bulk. So I can get a stevia blend, I can get an ethyl, I can get the xylitol, and I can get a couple of blends. But I want to touch a little bit on brand, because each is very different, and a lot of my people are in the States, they happen to be in England, they're all over the world. So how do we know by looking at the packages? What are we looking for when we're purchasing the purest available sweeteners?
Yeah, we always have to flip that package over. You know, like we talked about before. Don't settle for it saying it's stevia or it's erythritol. We need to flip it over, look at the ingredients, and see what else is in there. Make sure there's no artificial fillers. Make sure there's what other sweeteners. Make sure they don't add maltitol to it, or dextrose, or sorbitol, or lactitol, or glycerol. These are all possible triggers for blood sugar or insulin responses. So again, make sure you know what's in your sweetener. Make sure you know more importantly, what's not in your sweetener. And as long as you're sticking with those good choices, with those low glycemic index sweeteners, oftentimes you're going to be in good shape.
Excellent. So for our closing out thought, Dr. Jeremy, I'd like to talk a little bit about when we should be using sweeteners and how they work for transition. For me, when I first started keto, I used a lot of sweeteners. I craved a lot of sweet things, and I found that as my taste buds have changed, I use a lot less sweetener than I did before. But beyond that, I want to talk a little bit about sweeteners and weight stalls, because from my understanding, if you're taking sweetener during your fasting window, it will break your stall. But it's okay if we're in our eating window to consume our sweeteners then. So I'd like to talk a little bit about that. And if we're putting sweetener in our bulletproof coffee every morning, is that maybe holding us back?
It could. The answer is it could be. And I think that's, again, an individual thing, something that people have to experiment with themselves to see what works. Because I have had people stall with even using very healthy sweeteners, but maybe at the wrong time, or overusing sweeteners. We still can have an insulin response, even with a glycemic index of 0, because something tastes very sweet. Our brain thinks that we had sugar, right? So we have to keep that in mind, and maybe experiment with your particular lifestyle or diet approach to see if that's something you can safely get away with, or if it could be hindering you.
Nice. I love it, because we are all so very individual. So would you then recommend, Dr. Jeremy, like I do to people, try for a week. Take it out of your diet for a week, slowly add it back in, see what your resistance to it is. Can I have sweetener once a week? Can I get away with it a couple of times a week, and just sort of trial and error?
Absolutely. And you can simply get a home glucose meter as one way to maybe test things out. Okay. And try that meal, or try that sweetener, or try that combination, and then check and see what your blood sugar is responding to. You'll often be surprised, things that you may not realize are affecting your blood sugar are. Also, you can easily get home, ketone meters and check blood ketone levels to see how this new dietary approach, or maybe this little tweak that you're doing, how it's affecting your blood ketone levels, because that'll be more instant, feedback, more instant results than just kind of whatever your mark is, whether you're watching how you feel or you're watching the scale, for feedback.
Okay. And I noticed you didn't mention the pea sticks. I'm not really a fan of those. Is there a reason why you didn't mention them?
Yes, and that's probably because that it doesn't give you a lot of good information. Okay. What you already know this, but P strips are measuring what we're not using, what we're discarding. And so, early on, as you're first maybe entering this ketone conversation, that might be a cheap and easy way for you to kind of get some feedback on what your body's doing. Because early on, when our body is starting to burn fat for fuel, our cells aren't super efficient yet at using ketones for energy. So early on, we will actually dump a lot of ketones in our urine. And that's actually a good sign early on. But what happens is our body starts to become more efficient in utilizing ketones for fuel, and the strips become less and less effective at giving us honest, and accurate feedback. So if you're going to test, I always recommend blood testing, because really, if you think about it, ketosis is a state of elevated blood ketone levels, not elevated urine ketone levels. And so some people actually will hinder themselves because they're doing the keto diet, maybe they're doing it just right, but their P strips say that their ketones are low, and they get discouraged thinking that means something negative, when in their case it could mean something positive. It could mean that their body's utilizing ketones more efficiently. So it's hard to decipher after those first few weeks doing the keto lifestyle using urine strips. So hope that makes sense.
I'm so glad. That's exactly how I feel about them.
Awesome.
I tell people they're really great if you were trying to get pregnant and you're used to peeing on something every day. Right? They're excellent. They're cheap. They're cheaper than pregnancy tests.
They are.
So on our closing out thought, I would love for you to tell us everywhere we can find you. It is shameless plug time. I want my people to follow you on Instagram, Facebook. You have a Facebook group, so blast us, Dr. Jeremy. Where
Absolutely.
can we stalk you?
Well, like we talked about, I'm very poor at Instagram. I'm learning, and I hope to learn some things from you.
Oh, we will share.
But I am more comfortable on Facebook.
Okay.
I have a great keto group called Keto with Dr. Jeremy. You can look me up there. I also have a business page called Dr. Jeremy Thornton. You can find me there as well.
Excellent. And I will post those links, and I will post a picture on Instagram so everybody can find you in one click. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Jeremy. Have a great day.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
How fun was that? Oh my goodness. New doctor. Okay, guys. So I am going to go hang out with my guy for a little bit. I'm going to take a break. And we are back at 2 p.m. Mountain, and we're getting together with Christelle Bodyford today. I'm so excited. We are going to talk about how you can make an impact with your art. What kind of art, and how can we change the world together? I'm so excited. I cannot wait to hang out with you guys. Let's get us a dance out song. And I'll see you at 2 o'clock, guys. Have an awesome Monday morning.